All right, we're live.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. And welcome back to Maternal Health Mondays. August is Breastfeeding Month, and we are coming to the end of Black Breastfeeding Week. Tonight, we have three amazing speakers with us tonight to provide a little information and share some insight and their personal experiences and journeys on breastfeeding. My name is Asia Rush, and I serve as one of the maternal health coordinators with Six Dimensions. And for those of you that are new here, I am going to provide a little bit of information about Six Dimensions. We are a Black woman owned public health agency, and one of our goals is to improve maternal health outcomes. And Mississippi has one of the highest maternal mortality rates. And the MMRC, which is the Maternal Mortality Review Committee, was created to combat some of these health disparities that women face, especially Black women. And from that came the Facebook Lives, which we really wanted to be a space where we empower and educate Black women if they're ever faced with health disparities and adversity. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to pass it over to Natoya as she provides a brief overview of breastfeeding for us.
Okay, thank you, Aisha. As you said, I'm Natoya Sanders, and I serve as one of the maternal health coordinators for Six Dimensions. And so I think I just want to give you a little overview about the topic that we're going to discuss today, which it's Black Breastfeeding Week. And I think it's important that we acknowledge the history when we're discussing breastfeeding in Black women and lactation consultants. So during slavery, Black women were denied control of their own bodies, and they were forced to breastfeed their white enslavers' babies, even to the detriment of their own babies. And so this, along with economic oppression, the lack of visible marketing of Black families nursing, has combined together to create this racial disparity in breastfeeding rates. So, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Black infants have the lowest breastfeeding, sorry, that keeps tripping me up, rates of any racial group, coming in at about 74.1%, and the national average being about 83.2%. So, recognizing and knowing these roadblocks can sometimes make it difficult for people of color to enter the field of lactation. Black Breastfeeding Week was created in 2013 by three Black breastfeeding advocates, and it is the only health campaign with an explicit national focus on making an online and local impact on Black maternal and infant health through breastfeeding. So, with that being said, we are going to let our wonderful speakers today share a little bit more about lactation consultants, breastfeeding rates, maybe why some of you may have some of these questions as to why the numbers why there's racial disparities, and hopefully we'll have those answered today. So we're going to dive right in and introduce each of our speakers. So we will start with, well, I'll let Jasmine introduce herself, and she's going to introduce one of our speakers.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine Martin. I am an intern here at Six Dimensions. I work with maternal health outreach as well as young women health and kind of doing reproductive outreach with them. I won't talk about myself. I will go ahead and talk about one of our first speakers is Alisia Hankins. Alisia Hankins is a neonatal nurse practitioner and a certified lactation consultant. Alisia studied biology at Tougaloo College, where she earned a Bachelor's of Science degree. She earned both of her bachelor's and master's in nursing from the University of Alabama at Birmingham and received her doctor of nursing practice at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. Alisia has worked as a NICU for over 10 years, 7.5 of those being a nurse practitioner. In addition to her clinical practice, Alisia has a passion for educating future NNPs. She is currently the program coordinator for the Neonatal Nurse Practitioner Program at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. Alicia's passion is caring for NICU patients and their families, and she has a special interest in increasing breastfeeding amongst Black mothers. So we're excited to have Alisia speak to us today. So I'm going to pass it, I believe, to Natoya Cindy's hers.
Thank you, Jasmine. So circling back around, I'm going to introduce Miss Monet Kees. Monet Kees is a Mississippi native who has made Greensboro, North Carolina home for the last 3 years. She is currently the Health Equity Manager at Every Baby Guilford. In her work, she advances health equity and perinatal health by addressing systemic racism and implicit bias through education and dialogue. As a certified breastfeeding specialist and trained full spectrum doula, she has a passion for educating and empowering families to make informed decisions about their prenatal, birth, and postpartum experiences. Monet holds a Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences and a Master of Public Policy and Administration focused on public health and health policy from Mississippi State University. She is pursuing her doctorate in instructional systems and workforce development at Mississippi State University, and her research focuses on the intersectionality of racism, human lactation, and education. She and her husband are the parents of two very energetic toddlers, Micah and Mason, and in her spare time, she enjoys listening to podcasts, catching up on the latest audiobook, and crafting with her Cricut. So, welcome, Monet. Thank you for being here with us today, and we're very excited to hear what you have to share. Aisha?
And I have the pleasure of introducing Miss Kristina Turner. She is born and raised from Jackson, Mississippi. She graduated from Alcorn State University. Tierney, who's another intern of ours, she'll be happy to give you some praise on that. She is a proud boy mom, content creator, small business owner of Protect the Curls LLC, and she is an elementary educator residing in New Jersey. She hosts Melanin Mom Mondays on her Instagram page to discuss Melanin Moms topics that are not talked about enough. So, Kristina, we're so happy to have you and your perspective join us tonight in discussing breastfeeding. So, we're going to jump right into the discussion. So, we are going to give each of the speakers this time to briefly introduce yourself and share a little about your personal and professional background. So, whoever wants to take the floor can start.
Hello, everyone. Kristina Turner here, or Chris. A lot of people just call me Chris. And Asia pretty much hit everything on the point. My son, he just hit 4 months today, so I'm still a little emotional about that. So excuse me, because they grow up so fast, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I literally just had you the other day. And I'm really excited to be here. I love to talk anything mom related. So I'm really excited to hear about you guys' input on everything, and I love to keep it as real as possible. So I'm ready.
All right. Well, hi everyone. I'm Monet Kees. Natoya pretty much told you my entire life story, so that is who I am. I do have two very energetic toddlers, so you may hear them when I'm off of mute. We're trying to keep them quiet, but you might hear them. And today's kind of a big day because they both started new schools, and my oldest started kindergarten, so it's kind of a day to celebrate. And those two are the two that I breastfed. That's where I got my experience too. So I'm excited to be here tonight.
And like Jasmine said, I am a neonatal nurse practitioner. I was born and raised in Mississippi, and I live in Jackson, Mississippi now. I've worked in NICUs for over 10 years. Neonates and premature babies and sick babies really are my passion. And as long as I've been in the NICU, I see the disparities firsthand. I see how important breastfeeding is, and I see the need just for moms to be able to speak to someone who looks like them. And I think that's really important in my passions and my journey as a lactation consultant and just as a healthcare provider.
Thank you all so much for sharing that with everyone. So we're going to dive on into the discussion, and these next few questions, I'm going to I'm going to address those directly to Monet and Alisia. So I talked a little bit about Black Breastfeeding Week, how it was created in 2013 to highlight the challenges and triumphs of being Black and breastfeeding. So we know that there are blatant racial disparities in the breastfeeding rates, but also in breastfeeding leadership. So there have been recent studies that show that less than 2% of international board certified lactation consultants are Black or African American. So, can both of you speak just briefly about the importance of more Black lactation professionals?
Well, I think it's really important to have Black lactation professionals. I know as a breastfeeding mother, when I was struggling and I had to reach out to somebody, the first person I would go looking for is someone that looks like me. And so to know that depending on where you are, it may be extremely limited of who you may find. And when you meet that person or you see that person, I mean, this is a very like intimate type of like appointment. And so, you want to feel comfortable with them. You want to be able to talk about things that are going on. And so you want to be able to be someone you can connect with. And for me personally, I'm able to connect with someone who looks like me because then you can have those conversations about, this is what's going on. Please help me. And, it could be in those sidebar conversations like, girl, and then she starts talking about something and you find out something about your journey that you didn't even know. And so I think it's really important that you have those people that look like you because research says if someone looks like you, then you're more likely to trust them and you're more likely to follow what they say and take their advice.
And so, Monet, I think what you're saying is, and what we're seeing is representation matters, whether it's physicians, whether it's nurses, it matters that you're able to see somebody that looks like you. And I speak a lot by telling stories about experiences that I've had with moms, dispelling myths about breastfeeding. I have a mom come in, she has a premature baby. I ask her, is she going to breastfeed? And she says, oh, I hadn't changed my diet or I haven't been eating certain things. And so just talking through, well, that's not necessarily true. Grandma may have said, you needed to do this while you were pregnant to breastfeed. Those things aren't true. And I think just being a Black woman and knowing what the disparities are and understanding and seeing um, how Black moms are treated who either don't want to breastfeed or want to breastfeed. I'll never forget, I had a mom come down, her baby was in the NICU, so obviously super important for her to breastfeed. And she told me this story of how the lactation consultant met with her in her room. They go and they basically see every mom. Well, she made breastfeeding, the lactation consultant made breastfeeding sound like one of the hardest things on the planet. And don't get me wrong, it is hard. But the things that she was telling me, she said, I said, she told you that? Like the pain and the dedication and the whatever, just automatically discounting that she was even going to try to breastfeed. And so I was able to sit down with her and talk to her about how important it was for her baby. And the other person just wrote her off, and I can be kind of pushy. They say no. I'm like, are you sure? Well, why not? Well, what are your reasons? What are your hangups? And so you have to sit down and have a conversation with them and understand why they don't want to breastfeed. Because most of the time it's just they don't know. They didn't receive the education prenatally. And so it's really important to care enough to sit down and take the time to understand why they are choosing not to. And it could be just a lack of resources. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know, what somebody should be doing to help them. And I think as Black women, the benefits of breastfeeding for the baby and for the mom, we can use those as talking points to say, breastfeeding for mom lowers your risk of hypertension, ovarian cancer, and things like that. And so we can use the benefits to kind of talk them into, okay, this is something I can try.
So, Alicia, it's kind of interesting that you pointed that out because I understand that there's several levels of lactation professionals. And as you said, a new mother may feel overwhelmed and unsure. Can you explain the differences of the different levels of lactation professionals and how might a new mother go about choosing what's the best option for her?
So I'm going to touch on the two most common, a CLC, which is certified lactation consultant, and then an IBCLC, which is an international board certified lactation consultant. So the difference is the number of continuing education hours that they have to have. Um, for a CLC, you have to have 52 hours of education, and then for an IBCLC, you have to have 90. The other difference is that IBCLCs are most commonly healthcare professionals and they have to do a certain number of clinical hours, whereas a CLC doesn't necessarily have to do clinical hours. They do the education hours, they take an exam, and they're a CLC, and it's the same with the IBCLC. There is an exam, but you also have to have some type of like college health science education. And so the role of both is to educate, support, and advocate for breastfeeding. So, in Mississippi and in rural areas, it doesn't matter if you're an IBCLC or a CLC. You need somebody to educate you, support you, and advocate for you. So I'm not going to say that you have to choose one over the other. You choose somebody that makes you feel comfortable. You choose somebody that you think can help you with whatever issues you may have or just basic education. So anybody who is educated in lactation would be a good resource.
Thank you, Alicia. And you might feel like a lot of these questions are directed towards you, but you are providing some very good information. So this is going to be the last one, and then we might shift gears a little bit. But I know there are some situations where a neonate is unable to latch due to oxygen requirements. So can you share with us how a lactation professional can support NICU families in their newborn if their newborn is unable to latch?
So, latching and direct breastfeeding is obviously very important. And if you have the opportunity to do that, then obviously you can. But unfortunately, moms of babies who come to the NICU are most often separated from their baby, so they're not able to latch. From a respiratory perspective, if the baby's in extreme preterm infant, then they're on respiratory support, and there's a risk for aspiration with pressure into the lungs. Premature babies aren't able to suck, swallow, and breathe until they're about 34 weeks. So those are kind of the situations where your baby will not be able to direct breastfeed. But that makes it even more important to provide breast milk for your baby. Your baby is immunocompromised, your baby is separated from you, your baby's not able to get the immune properties that they would from doing skin to skin and things like that. So what moms need to know, whose babies are separated from them, you need to start pumping almost immediately after delivery. Within 1 to 2 hours is preferred, but within 6 hours have been studies to support an increase in milk supply. Those moms breastfeed longer, as far as a period of time, and they have more milk to provide for those babies. So getting that hospital grade pump and or getting somebody to show you how to hand express your milk to send to the NICU for your baby. And I always tell moms, they only get a little bit initially. Every drop is liquid gold. Obviously, we do something called oral care with the breast milk that provides immune properties. As soon as you are able to go to the NICU to see your baby, you should request to do skin to skin if the baby's clinical status allows. So the body is an amazing thing. Skin to skin will help the mom produce milk because they are at a disadvantage. They're separated from their babies. Pumping while you're doing skin to skin can increase your milk supply. Um, Pumping 3 to 4 times a day, every 3 to 4 hours, I'm sorry, 8 to 10 times a day is so important. Moms get discouraged because they're not getting any milk, but the only way you're going to make more milk is to remove what's already there. So I tell moms, set your timer on your phone, set your reminders, and pump around the clock. Um, and storing milk properly to get it to the NICU is very important. Donor breast milk is available for moms who can't produce milk, or if the milk isn't in and they want to start feeding. So that's something that the hospital will offer if your baby qualifies for that. So again, it's really education and knowing, because if mom has been through a C-section, the last thing on everybody's mind is get mom a pump, or if mom got general anesthesia, that's the last thing on everybody's mind. But tell your significant other before you deliver, hey, make sure they get me a pump. We've got to get started pumping so that I can make milk for my baby who really, really needs it.
Alicia, it's funny you say that because I remember barely being like coherent, after a C-section, and a lactation consultant came in and was trying to get me to pump. And I was so irritated because I had a C-section. It hurt to pump. It was that big hospital grade pump. I didn't want to talk about anything, just given the circumstances. But I knew that me doing that would be beneficial to Jordan. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's only we're barely getting like 1 cc. And I think we were having to like hand express. And Joey was like helping me try to hand express. And, you guys were like, 1 cc is enough. That's really all that his belly can tolerate at this moment. And, Joey would run it down to the NICU. And that, it was stressful, but knowing that if I continued to do that every 2 hours, then I would produce more and more. And it did. So I'm thankful that, you guys were in place to kind of relay that information. And I just want to shift back a little bit to when we talked about the different levels of lactation professionals. I wanted to give Monet the opportunity to share some exciting news that she has with us about her lactation journey, and the different levels. Monet, do you mind sharing with us?
Sure. Wasn't expecting that, Natoya. So also, I guess I could have included in the bio as well. I am actually on the journey to becoming an IBCLC. So I'm a Pathway 2 student at North Carolina A&T. So taking my academic courses to do all of the things, and then also doing clinical hours as well, because Alicia mentioned those clinical hours, and it's a lot. So I'm working towards those clinical hours as well.
Well, congratulations. Your journey has been inspiring. So glad I got to see you put on your white coat. But we wish you all the best going forward. So Kristina, you're in the hot seat now. Jasmine's going to talk to you a little bit about kind of your journey to breastfeeding, and just some, advice and encouragement that you have to moms.
Sorry, I can't find my unmute button. So can you tell us a little bit about your breastfeeding journey, and then how and why did you make the decision to breastfeed?
So I honestly was not raised on breastfeeding or the education of breastfeeding. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi, and I'm not going to say that that plays a big part, and maybe in a lot of people's minds. I mean, Jackson, Mississippi, some resources you don't get a lot of attention towards, and my mom, she didn't breastfeed either, and I'm not sure about her mom's mom, because that really wasn't discussed when I was young or growing up. But I never really was exposed. I remember like seeing it on like commercials or on TV, and it being seen as like a shameful thing, or seeing it in the news of how like mothers would be like in public, and it would be like more of a shameful thing, like they need to go somewhere else. And like even in public at the mall, like the mall restroom isn't mom friendly. So yeah, I really wasn't exposed at all, or I seen it as like kind of like a negative light. And so once, I got pregnant and, planning everything of what I wanted to do for my baby, breastfeeding, I was like, you know what, I might as well try. I did my own research at that time and seeing all the good benefits. And also I joined a program where I'll have like my own lactation consultant, and she's Black. So I was like, all right, this is great. And she has children as well. So, we could relate in that aspect. So she gave me a lot of great information, and to me, that just encouraged me to want to breastfeed. And I love the fact that she mentioned, and I think Alisia, am I saying it right? Alisia? No, I was like, oh Lord, I'm sorry. No, I like the fact that you also mentioned that the other side of breastfeeding, besides the benefits for the baby, there's a lot of benefits for the mom that I had no idea about. Of course, we want to make sure our baby is taken care of and fed, but I didn't know it had a benefit for me as well. So I thought that that was a plus as well. Becoming a mom, because all the attention is for the baby and make sure the baby is well and healthy. And sometimes, like as a mom, you like yourself is kind of in the dark. So I really enjoyed the fact that I was able to hear both sides of it. And to me, that encouraged me a lot. So yeah, it was kind of like a no-brainer. And then kind of discussing it with my mom, she was just like, "Are you sure?" Kind of seeing like that stressful side of it, like, "You sure it's gonna be all of this and that?" And I'm like, I mean, I might as well try. I mean, if my body can produce milk, which is still mind blowing to me that my body can do that. But I'm like, might as well try it, and it benefits him, it benefits myself as well, and I only want the best for both of us.
So, like as you said earlier, you do have a 4-month-old. Congratulations, 4-month-old. Excuse me. Do you have any tips for caring for yourself physically and emotionally while breastfeeding?
You said, do I have any tips?
Yes.
So, what I would say, it is a journey. There is, there's both sides of it. I think that being able to have someone you can relate to, whether it's like another mom that that's already breastfeeding as well, and you two can hold each other accountable, encouraging each other, talking to a dedicated lactationist that you trust. Because I did talk to one that was assigned at my hospital, and the information that she gave me was very disheartening and very discouraging. Like, for one, if your cycle starts, and if you started having a little bleeding, then that means no more milk. And that actually happened to me. And I was starting to bleeding a little bit, and this was really early on, when after he was born. So that was kind of expected. I had a vaginal birth, and that was still expected, and I didn't know. And so once I seen a little bleeding down there, like, I'm in the shower. It was a whole Usher R&B situation. I was crying. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to breastfeed my baby, and I had to go in another room and see him smiling. I'm just like, I can't. And so I talked to the lactation consultant that I trust, and I mentioned it to her. She's like, she told you that, and I'm like, yes. And it's over. How can I bring it back? And she was like, girl, it's normal. You just had a baby 2 seconds ago, not literally, but very short time ago. And after she told me that, that calmed me down. I was worried about the amount of milk that I was producing in the beginning. My boos were rock hard. It's getting used to the schedule, so it was a lot of milk at once in the beginning, and then it slowed down. And I'm just like, is it me? Am I not drinking enough coconut water, which is disgusting to me? And I'm trying my best. Is it not enough oats? Google will mess you up. So another tip: don't go on Google, okay? Because Google will tell you the worst. So, of course, I talked to her, and she calmed me down, gave me advice, and said it's normal. Your milk supply is getting used to his schedule, so it may not be as rock hard as it used to, but you got enough for him. So chill out. So I was like, all right, cool. And my tip would, of course, to talk to someone you trust, and realize it's okay to have a bad day. It's all right. You know, I don't want to say sink in it, but just know that it's temporary. All of it is temporary, and it's always going to get better. So I'll just say, take a deep breath. If you believe in God, if you believe in the universe, definitely count on, your spirituality in that time as well, for faith to keep going.
Thank you for sharing that, Kristina. Thank you so much. That's very admirable, and congratulations again. And good luck, as you continue on your breastfeeding journey. Monet, I want to shift back and ask you just a few questions. Well, two questions. One in particular, I know that you are a very organized individual, and that you typically have a plan. So, can you talk to us a little bit about um, having a birth plan? Alisia, you mentioned maybe letting a spouse or a partner know that you want to breastfeed prior to giving birth. Monet, can you talk in your personal experience about having a breastfeeding plan prior to giving birth?
Sure. So, with both of my pregnancies, I had some type of plan. The first pregnancy, it wasn't as organized. It was more, I need my husband to remember these things when we go there. But with my second pregnancy, it was on paper. And so for me, I wanted to go into the entire birth, not just my feeding plan, but birth with the plan. So I had everything from kind of the moment we walked in the door, what that would look like. Even prior to them having my plan, I met with them at the hospital when I did my tour, and they started this whole folder for me of all the things that I said I wanted and I needed. And, I looked up the hospital to kind of see what their rates were, what things looked like. So I knew what I was going into. And so in that meeting, I talked with the nurse about kind of their common practices, what their practices were when it came to breastfeeding. And I remember asking, are you a baby friendly hospital? And she was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, are you a designated baby friendly hospital? And then at that point, I think she realized, like, oh, okay, she may know what she's talking about. She was like, no, I'm not. We're not. But, we do all the practices. And I was like, okay. So I followed up with, well, do you give pacifiers to the newborns? Oh, yeah, we have pacifiers. We give them out. And I said, oh, no, we don't want a pacifier. So, I was like, make sure you write that down in my little chart because we don't want a pacifier. So I knew going into that hospital, even though she said they were kind of baby friendly, I knew that all of their practices weren't going to be baby friendly. And so I knew that when it came to breastfeeding, I was going to have to be on top of it. And so, in our birth plan, we had everything for birth, but then we also had postpartum. So, what was that going to look like for me? What was feeding going to look like? Like, I specifically said, which I knew that it was kind of common practice to do skin to skin after birth, but I wrote it in there just in case things, didn't go as planned. But then I also, let them know that breastfeeding is the plan and I want no type of artificial nipples in our room. So, like, I didn't want to be offered a pacifier. I didn't want to be offered a bottle unless, it was an emergent situation, it was something like that. But because everything was, kind of textbook normal, I guess, I knew kind of what to expect, especially with this being my second pregnancy and second birth. I kind of knew what to expect. So I was like, okay, these are the things we want. No artificial nipples at all. We will manage that. And I think because they knew that I breastfed before, I don't really remember seeing a lactation specialist when I was in the hospital. And if I did, it may have been on the second day, but it definitely wasn't on the first. And I think it was because, I had mentioned that I did it before, which, I mean, I still had questions because every journey is not the same. So I still would have liked someone to have come in just to check. But I also had a doula there as well. And then I also had a midwife. So, I think I was covered, but I did go in with the plan. And I think for me, also having a midwife, she knew what my plan was as well. So she was very strong on breastfeeding and knowing that that was my plan. And so when I had questions, because I mean, of course, I asked her questions at my prenatal visits, and then through postpartum when she came back, if I had more questions, she helped me with different latches, because over my 20 something months of having a child, I forgot some of the common latches, different ways to hold a newborn. And so, she helped me with that. But it was good for me to just know that I had it on a piece of paper and that I had it in a plan that was given to the nurses. Even though I didn't personally give it to them because I was really nervous. I was like, I don't want to be that one. And Alicia's laughing because she's probably like, we have parents like that. But I'm like, I don't want to be the one, that family that they're like, don't go in that room. Don't do that. And so I didn't want to give it out. But my husband was like, they're getting this. I mean, it was in like a manila folder and it was all there together. But it ended up working out and we weren't the difficult family. So it worked out good. Was there a second part of the
So,
question?
um, No, you're good. We're
Okay.
gonna shift gears a little bit. I do have another question for you because you touched on a lot of things, and we know that it is very important to have the support while you're pregnant, whether it's family, a doula, your mom, friend. So, Monet and Christina, I'm gonna direct this question toward you, both of you guys. So, can you both talk about how the support of your spouse or partner and family or friends help you throughout this process?
Sure. So I mentioned my husband. He was the one that handed out those birth plans that had the feeding plans on there. He was probably one of the biggest supports, especially in our first journey because my son was born at 36 weeks. It was a little, late preterm, but still preterm. And so feeding was a bit challenging. Our first latch was perfect. Everything was great in the first hour. And then after that, it was a challenge. He didn't want to eat. We tried everything as far as trying to get him to eat, trying to get him to latch. And so it was very discouraging because, of course, they hand you this paper where you have to track the feedings. And I'm like, he's not feeding. And so the nurses are coming in like he has to eat or we're going to have to give him formula. And I'm like, no, we can't. We're going to keep trying. We're going to keep trying. And so, we hand expressed into a little bitty cup and it was just a little bit, but then we kind of tried to tip it into his mouth and put it on his tongue and it worked. But I mean, we did testing, glucose testing, nothing changed for him. So he wasn't in a danger zone. So for me, having my husband there to really support, because I had gotten to a point where I was like, well, maybe we just need to do formula. Maybe we just need to give up. And he was like, we can always pump. And I was like, you know what? We can. I didn't even think about that because in that moment, all I could think about was breastfeeding the baby. I didn't think about the fact I can still provide my milk by pumping. And so I was like, that was the plan. When we left the hospital, I was like, all right, well, we're gonna pump. We're just gonna be on a pumping journey. And then we got home and he latched, and I was like, thank you goodness, because at 10 months when he did decide to just not latch anymore, I did have to pump for 6 weeks. And that was a chore for me. And so it was definitely different. But I think having my husband there to support was probably the best thing. But also having friends who were also pregnant and had given birth at the same time. We all gave birth that summer. And so we were all on a lactation journey together. So we were all up at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning in group chat saying, hey, are you up with your baby? What are you doing? And it really helped because although we were all sleep deprived, it helped to know that someone else was going through the same things. And if we had any questions, we were like, hey, this is what's happening right now. What can I do to make this change? And they would be more than willing to help. So I think my husband and my friends who are also on the journey helped me really get through there.
I can also agree to Monet as well. Definitely my husband. I feel you on the sleep deprived because what people don't I didn't know this is my first child. I did not know after birth people still bother you. They come in so many times. I'm just like, y'all, I'm just trying. And then, you're breastfeeding, so you have to feed every couple hours and you're not getting any sleep. And this continues, for the next couple weeks, or unless you're pumping and use that time to pump, whether it's in the middle of the night. But it was a lot. And thank God for him because he definitely helped me out a lot. Although he was there, I don't know if it was just me, but at times I did feel like, dang, I got to do all of this by myself. Like as far as the feeding, because he's depending on me, like for life, it's me. So it was a lot. It took a mental toll on me as well. I'm not going to lie, because I'm now getting used to having a baby and this new transition. And I don't want to make the sound depressing, but like mourning who I was before, like that life is gone now. So that I was going through all of those stages as well. And so although it's a very rewarding to be able to feed your baby with golden milk, as they say, it was a lot. And I was really glad that he was there. And also, my mom, she does not do flights. She's a true Southern person, and she loves to be at home and not going, on flights places. And so she actually, and I'm in Jersey, so she took a flight here because if she drove, Lord, 17 hours, I'd done that never again. And I knew she wouldn't be able to do that, or she didn't want to do that alone. And so I was really blessed that she, took that flight after 20 something years, came down and helped me out. So those two, they really helped me out a lot. And I'm the type that feels like, and I'm working on it, y'all, that wants to put on everything. Like, I got it, I got it. I don't mind asking for help, but if I know I can do it at that moment, I will. But again, I was sleep deprived, and they'll see there's like, no, give me the baby, give me the baby, go take a nap. Okay. We'll get you once it's time for him to eat. So I would say definitely my mom and my husband helped me out a lot.
Thank y'all. Thank you both for sharing that. I think it's just evident that, having a strong support system really helps you on those most challenging days, through your journey. And Alisia, you spoke to this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to just kind of ask you more specifically what factors played a role in your decision to pursue lactation consulting as a way to directly affect or support Black women?
Just seeing how mothers that look like me are treated, and that's depressing. It's sad. You don't want to accept that that's the reality, but it is. And this was very recent. I had a mom, she brought the baby back to clinic, so I see clinic babies. The baby was like 4 days old, and the mom was in so much pain. And so the baby was fine, but I asked her, what's going on with you? And she was like, my breast hurt so bad. So the nurses had bound her breast with compression binding, and they had given her a cream to dry her milk up. Well, obviously that didn't happen right away. So her breasts were so hard and she was in so much pain, she could barely take care of her baby. And I was so busy. I had so much going on, but I sat in there with her for 30 minutes and helped her hand express, and she got like an ounce and a half. She had not pumped. She was 4 days postpartum, and she got an ounce and a half of milk. They were young, they were Black. Her boyfriend or significant other was helping her. He was so impressed. He was like, we came here and now we have milk. But it was like she probably said, I don't want to breastfeed, but nobody inquired about why not, and the other thing is, if you're going to go through this pain of being engorged, you might as well get something out of it for at least a little bit. And so she was so proud of herself, and all it took was for somebody to sit down with her and pour in 30 minutes with her and show her, you can do this. This is hard. I may have to get you a hand pump. You may have to hand express. It ain't pretty. It hurts. But just seeing situations like that where they just need somebody to care, and people who don't know the disparities, who don't look like us, who don't understand how big of a deal it is, it's a checkbox. So I have to go from this mom to this mom to this mom to this mom. She says she don't want to breastfeed. Okay, I'm done. But sit down, have a conversation, and that was so needed, especially for my NICU babies, because that kind of gets overlooked. It gets overlooked how important it is to provide milk and for you to ask for those resources. So it was just a broken heart from seeing how moms that look like me are treated and how I would be treated if I was in the hospital. And I'm not a mom, I've never breastfed, so I can't speak from experience, but I know what research shows. I've done the training. And so I'm willing to help however it is. And education is so important. Birth plans are great. But as a provider, I think on the other side, when it's warranted, when it's needed, and all you have to do is ask questions. So, why do you want to give my baby formula? Is his glucose low? Is he not peeing? Is he not pooping? Well, if he's doing all those things and there's not a medical indication, then we can make this work because his belly is like this big. So, he can't take very much milk. And even the nurses, you give them an ounce of formula and they're 3 hours old, their body is made to take that much formula. And so just educating moms on things like that. So don't be so hard and fast. I've got to breastfeed. He's got to latch. Like you said, you may have to pump, whatever it takes, as long as he gets the milk. And at the end of the day, fed is best. And that's I will die on that hill. But we just need the support, and we need support from medical professionals and people that just care.
All right, everyone. Well, we're going to go ahead and start to wrap it up. We've received so much wisdom and advice from you guys, so I've learned so much, and I'm very thankful. I want to turn into the chat to see if there's any questions. Feel free to go ahead and drop some questions in if you have. Asia and Natoya, please feel free to ask some questions. That wasn't already planned. We do have one question from Six Dimensions. I don't know who it came from, but it asks, is it expensive to become an IBCLC? Just thinking about how we can remove some barriers for Black women. So I can, kind of pass the question to either Monet or Alicia.
I will say it's not the cheapest. Depending on what route you go, the prices can vary. That is one of the biggest barriers that exists. That also contributes to kind of why the number of Black IBCLCs is low, because if you got to take those college classes, then that's one cost, and then actually paying for the exam, because it's few $100s, like $600. So, all of those things, when you add it up, and then if you have to pay for a mentor, for clinical hours, all those things can really add up, and can add up really fast. And so cost is a major barrier. But there are scholarships. There has been an increase in scholarships, I'll say that, over the last 2 years.
So if someone were interested in that journey, are you open to us, sharing your contact information where they could reach out to you?
Sure. Yeah.
Good deal. We'll drop that in the chat.
All right. We also have something from Kizzy Jones. It's not a question, but it's, free advice. She was saying that she's a breastfeeding advocate here on the coast. She manages the Sharing Health Education Awareness, I guess abbreviated as SHIA. So feel free to connect with her, whether it's messaging through Facebook if you're on the coast and need some help in this journey of breastfeeding. So I don't think there's any more questions. Let me just double check. Rochelle Taylor says she wrote this book for everything you just said about needing encouragement during the journey and because of the limited access to IBCLCs, of color. And then she also dropped a link for that. So feel free to take that. I believe that's it. Yeah, so I want to go ahead and pass it back to Natoya to close out.
All right. Thank you, Jasmine. So thank each of you for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your professional and personal experience with us here today. I did want to give each of you a moment to let any viewers or listeners know about any products or services that you all have to offer. So Kristina, I'll start with you, and we'll let just each of you, just very briefly tell the audience how they can maybe reach you, or what product services you have to offer.
Thank you. And first, I want to give a shout out to Keezy Jones. I hope I'm saying it correctly, because a lot of the things that you were saying in the chat, that's what I'm looking over. I can connect with you, girl. So I definitely see what you're saying about the formula shortage. That motivated me as well. I'm like, all right, these things gonna have to work. All right. but yes, I really enjoyed this. It's great to see Black professionals in this industry who is passionate as well. So I'm really glad to be on the panel with you guys as well. You guys can just follow me on Instagram. It's chill2_pill. Had it since high school, and a lot of people already know my Instagram like that, so it's kind of hard to change right now, but it's chill underscore pill. And I also have a business page, protect the curls, protect_the_curls. And I'm rebooting it back on my anniversary. It's going to be my 2-year anniversary at the end of September. So you guys can follow that. And just like Asia mentioned, I do Melanin Mom Mondays, where we discuss different discussions that's not being discussed enough by millennial moms of this time. And yeah, that's about it. That's where you can reach me.
And then for me, I do have a business called Reclaim Journey. And so it is Reclaimed Journey on Instagram and then reclaimjourney.com. Taking a very limited amount of clients over the next year just so that I can finish school and then cranking it back up probably around next summer.
Currently, I just work in the hospital and I teach, but my plan at some point in the near future is to hopefully start a lactation service here in Jackson and hopefully target Black mothers, low income mothers, mothers with lack of resources, and just provide prenatal education, and just provide a provider's perspective for what to expect in the hospital, what to look for, and things like that. So that's in the plan. I'm not sure when it will come to fruition, but that's it.
Put it in the universe. Put it in the universe and it'll come to fruition. So thank y'all so much again. Aisha is going to get ready to close us out here with a few comments.
Yes, so again, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. The viewers, speakers, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Six Dimensions actually wants to give everyone a giveaway. So our viewers, the first 10 people who follow our LinkedIn page, which is just go to linkedin.com, type in Six Dimensions, and you follow our page, and then send us a message on Facebook that you followed us, we're going to gift you with a free breastfeeding coloring book. So this is for breastfeeding moms only. So if you're interested, we're giving away 10 breastfeeding coloring books to the first 10 breastfeeding moms who follow our LinkedIn page. So go to linkedin.com, type in Six Dimensions, follow our page, send us a message on Facebook that you followed so we can know who was the first 10. And in that way, we can get you over that breastfeeding coloring book. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. Toya, can you talk a little about the event that we have on Wednesday?
Yeah, so Jazz, can you drop the flyer in the you already dropped it? Okay, sorry, I'm not connecting over there. So Wednesday, Wednesday we will have another Facebook Live. Let me pull everything up. So it is going to be Wednesday the 31st, same time, 6:00 Central, and it's going to be talking about the importance of partners in breastfeeding. So you can log on the same way, Six Dimensions, through Facebook, and we will have Miss Rachel and Dennis Warner and Miko and Lake Woods. So they will talk about their journey to breastfeeding and more on the support side there. So please join us again. We have so much going on this week with Black Breastfeeding Week, and we're just so thrilled that you guys are coming along the journey. So does anybody have anything else to add? Well, if not, we will see you guys Wednesday. So thank y'all again for sharing.
Thank you, everyone.